It feels like just yesterday, Bitcoin was flirting with unbelievable all-time highs, and now it's in a free fall. So we're going to break down the hidden forces behind this massive crash and figure out what it means for the future of crypto.
It really all comes down to this one single brutal word. That's a number that just a few months back felt like a solid gold floor, and now it's been completely smashed.
So was this just a predictable correction, something the market needed? Or is there something, a little more sinister going on here? In this explainer, we're going to dig into the 4 key forces that sent Bitcoin absolutely spiraling. To really get a sense of the scale here, you have to remember where we were. We're not just talking about some small dip. Nope. This is a massive, high-stakes reversal from those incredibly optimistic sky-high prices. To understand the whole story, we've got to rewind to early February 2026. Because honestly, the numbers from that month, they tell a story of a market in just pure turmoil. A 40% drop. I mean, that's not a dip. That is a complete nosedive from its peak back in October 2025. This is seriously one of the most brutal sell-offs in recent memory, and it is sending shockwaves through the entire crypto world. And yeah, as you can see, this carnage was not just a Bitcoin problem. The whole crypto market is bleeding out. Over $2 trillion just wiped out from its highs. We're talking about a level of destruction that we really haven't seen since the dark days of 2024. Okay, so let's get into it. A drop this big, it's never just one thing, right? We've managed to identify 4 key forces that came together to create this perfect storm. So, first up, the big players are cashing out. We're talking about institutional investors, the so-called smart money. Not long ago, they were Bitcoin's biggest cheerleaders, and now they are stampeding for the exits. And here's how they're doing it. Investors are pulling billions and billions of dollars out of Bitcoin ETFs. These funds, they were a huge reason the price went up in the first place, like a giant safety net. And as that money flows out, it creates this immense selling pressure that the market is just struggling to absorb. Okay. The second driver is something that always pours gasoline on the fire in any crypto crash: leverage. I want you to picture a line of dominoes. The first one to fall is just a small price drop, but then it sets off a chain reaction. Traders who've borrowed money to make bigger bets are suddenly and forcibly sold out of their positions. That pushes the price down even more, which triggers more forced selling, and on it goes until the whole market is just in a state of collapse. All right, now for our third driver. This one steps outside of crypto and looks at the bigger global picture. Because, let's be real, Bitcoin doesn't exist in a vacuum. So all around the world, investors are getting nervous. There's a ton of macroeconomic uncertainty, financial conditions are getting tighter, and what happens then? People sell what they see as risky assets, like tech stocks and, you guessed it, Bitcoin, and they move their money into safer stuff, like gold and bonds. And finally, let's talk about the charts themselves. Because, sometimes a price chart can become a kind of self-fulfilling prophecy. For weeks, everybody's eyes were glued to one number: $72,000. That was the line in the sand. It was the last bit of hope for the bulls. And once that level broke, it was like a dam bursting. The floodgates just opened wide, and the bears took complete control. So, the crucial point is, what does all this actually mean for you? Whether you're an investor, a trader, or maybe you're just watching all this craziness from the sidelines. Well, it seems like the consensus is growing. With such a steep loss and the breakdown of those key support levels, many experts are now officially calling this a bear market. And that term, it signals a long period of downward prices and just really negative feelings all around. And this slide right here perfectly illustrates Bitcoin's moment of truth. Is it the digital gold we were all promised? A safe haven when things get chaotic? Or is it just another risky tech stock, fated to rise and fall with the whims of the market? Right now, the answer is looking pretty clear, isn't it? But okay, let's look to the future. Because all this short-term chaos, it doesn't necessarily mean the long-term story is over. It actually paints a more complex picture. So, despite the current mess, there is still a glimmer of hope. Some of the biggest names in finance are still betting on its long-term success. And if you actually look at the on-chain data, that's the public record of transactions, you'll see the true believers are using this as a chance to buy more. But let's make no mistake, the future is still very, very much up in the air. Which, of course, brings us to the final, critical question. Bitcoin is standing at a crossroads, so which path is it going to take from here? Broadly speaking, there are really three potential scenarios on the table. The bullish case is that Bitcoin takes back $70,000 and finds some new momentum. The bearish case, the selling keeps going and we test those lower support levels, maybe down in the $55,000 to $60,000 range. And then there's the third path, where Bitcoin just stays tied to the global markets and stays under pressure as long as they do. You know, the battle for the soul of Bitcoin is absolutely raging right now. Is this the end of the crypto dream? Or is it just the beginning of a brand new chapter? I guess the next few months are going to tell us everything we need to know about the future of money.